Hey, how's it going, Exiles? It's your boy Belton here, back with another video, and we're going to be discussing a topic, a little bit of a hot button issue today, but as you can see with the title above, we're going to once again be discussing TFT in ways that I believe are rather brazen and egregious this time, whereby I think it's very evident that they are cheating, bypassing terms of service, whether or not directly, at the very least through proxy, and how this is going to impact you as a player negatively, whether or not you're aware of it, and whether or not you experience TFT in a positive light. I'm not trying to change anyone's mind on that. I understand very well that there are many benefits to the group, but there are also things I believe that are happening behind the scenes that some people are unaware of, that I think need to be brought to light because I think there are certain, if not ethical, moral, whatever, um, there's certain discussions that need to be had about the universal applicability of law within the game itself, and as well, how much faith and power are we willing to put into an organization that is behaving in these kinds of ways I'm going to discuss. So, uh, I remember the first time I made a video in this lines, I heard your feedback. So today we're going to be getting right to the point. I've got slides to follow here. I've got points, and rather than focusing on conjecture and focusing on speculation and potentially scorned ex parties, we're only going to be relying on firsthand resources today. Everything that I'm going to be demonstrating as evidence is from TFT themselves. I'm going to provide some background information and some basal points to help inform the thesis that I'm developing here. And I think by the end, you'll come to the same conclusion that I have. But if not, that is absolutely your prerogative and right. And hopefully, at the very least, this video can allow for us to open a discussion about something that I think is rather troubling and something that I think needs to be addressed by the community at large, and also on a one-to-one basis, on an individual basis, with respect to what level of personal autonomy we're willing to relinquish to a rather opaque group of individuals. So with that being said, let's jump into it, guys. So here's a kind of quick summary TLDR. TFT parties have had their accounts permanently banned by GGG for breaking the terms of service. This includes mirror crafters that account for a substantial portion of TFT's mirror shop inventory and an even more substantial percentage of their overall in-game revenue. The most lucrative mirror crafts in the game of Path of Exile are bows, specifically physical bows, which account for a vast majority of overall mirror services, and in particular during temp leagues. These number in the thousands. The fees that items like this generate, along with other mirror items, are used to hoard materials like Hinakora's locks, Mirrors of Kalandra, in the past Eternals, basically high-end currency items, perhaps some, relatively liquid high-end items in it themselves, things like alt arts, whatever. But for the most part, high-end currency items that are easy to move. These will be hoarded in the thousands. It's going to make them exceedingly difficult for regular players to obtain as a result. Dominating certain subsets of the mirror market, in particular if you get to this early, can allow for currency streams to snowball. This allows for access to more bases, more potential mirror items, less competition, and ever increasingly centralized ownership. TFT requires trusted individuals to make these items, in particular those that have hyper-competitive markets associated with them. For an example here, think of Fizzbos, probably the best example. These crafts that I'm referencing here differ from the marketplace element of TFT, whereby people simply use them as a platform to gain visibility, market ubiquity, but they don't really have a formal relationship. So I'm talking about people that are funneled resources, manpower, intention, and guidance from the top down as a collective to make very specific, goal-oriented, lucrative items. So we're talking about people that are essentially, let's say, quote, colloquially, inner circle, right? All of TFT's holdings are listed by Janubu. However, if you look on the forbiddentrove.com, actually, correction, forbiddentrove.com, no the, you can see who the actual crafter or owner of an item is. Now, this is something that is not maybe necessarily apparent to everyone. I often see people discussing, how many mirror crafts that Janubu has in global channels and things like that. And the reality is that, the vast majority of these are not actually produced by him himself. They're made by other crafters, and naturally they can't be listed by multiple people on the trade site. So the name Janubu is the one that you would see. However, if you go take a look on their website, you can see who has actually, it'll say crafter / owner. And you can see who actually produced that item. So the one who made it, put the money in, and who is the actual owner. Right now, when Janubu takes them, the way that works for the people who are part of the marketplace, the ones that are just, maybe you got lucky and hit a really cool triple synth, you mirror crafted it up 6T1, but you only play a few hours, maybe a couple hours a night. You can't be online 24/7. You don't have, a guild or a stream or a Discord server behind you, and people don't know who you are, so maybe they might not trust you with their mirrors. It makes sense, right? You're going to give that over to a group like them, and they take a percentage fee as a result. This makes them incredibly wealthy in of itself, but those funds are then used and siphoned towards targeted crafts, and that's where these people that I'm mentioning, the associates or the TFT related individuals, that's where they come into play. So when you look at the actual crafter or owner of an item, as I mentioned, you can do that on their site, and you'll notice that there are roughly 2 to 4 names that are going to appear incredibly frequently, league over league, and in standard. They'll usually occupy a specific niche, right? And that's generally speaking going to be the most lucrative, sought after mirror items that have the greatest capacity to generate revenue. Now, this isn't necessarily going to be the rarest items or the strongest items even, but if you analyze the mirror markets, right, in particular in a temporary league, and you can recognize that more than 50% of all mirrors that are used are initially used on a bow, and then you go and investigate further and see that 95% of bow users are wearing omniscience, it would stand to reason that, following that line of logic, that omni items would have a higher potential mirror market than, for example, in my case, I like to craft discharge rings. These get mirrored maybe once or twice a league by your infrequent discharge player, but you can make a ring that is far easier to craft, far more likely to craft, cheaper by all means, and less difficult, and less, I don't want to say revolutionary, but there's several of them that exist over the course of history. They're not groundbreaking, and they might get mirrored 50, 60 times, and that's simply because the market's there. And that's one of the defining factors of these kinds of crafts, right? Very rarely are they pushing the threshold of what's possible or creative, but they're fulfilling a need. And all the power to them. It's a free market. That's what they're going to do. But some of these names that you guys might recognize, Xron, Reply, Plushies, Janadu, and you'll notice that these names pop up over and over and over again. You might trade with them, but if you go look on TFT's site, it's not one guy making one item. You'll see these guys' names, 10, 20, 30% of all the items that they have are made by these people. And they're typically, again, within these very categorically narrow niches. So following up on that, the specifics of the ban are not public. But typically, this is going to involve either botting, RMTing, disallowed third-party software use, or automation of processes that provide an unfair advantage. Now, I'm going to apologize in advance because I'm sure I'm going to fumble through this. Tech is not really my strong suit, but from what I've come to understand over the course of time I've played, is that there are certain scripts or bots or whatever that can automate certain crafting processes, things that follow very defined guidelines. So something like rolling alterations automatically until it hits merciless, or something where it goes exalt, exalt, metamod scour, exalt, exalt, metamod scour when you're trying to hit +2 arrow on a suffix. Things like that people could write scripts or whatever. Again, the exact terminology I'm unaware of, so I apologize for those of you who are tech savvy. But I am aware. I've never seen them used, but I've been told through the decade that I've played that these kinds of programs exist. This is the one part of this presentation that is going to be somewhat conjecture, because the reality is I can't speak to exactly why the accounts were banned, but I can tell you 100% definitively that they were banned for cheating. How they specifically were cheating, whether that's using an automated process, whether that's using a script, whether that's using third-party software that's disallowed, whether it's RMTing. I suppose at the end of the day, barring curiosity, is not really that relevant. The point is that they crossed a line that GGG determined was irredeemable, and their accounts were permanently banned. In the following slides, I will show clear evidence that not only is TFT complicit by association with such unscrupulous parties, but that they continue to benefit from the fruits of their labor. And this is the same labor that has merited a permanent ban in the eyes of GGG. I want to make it clear as well that these are not isolated cases. These are not singular items, and these are not like minutia sort of overlooked. Oh, whoops, forgot about that. These are quite literally the most lucrative and the most mirrored items that TFT owns. Several months ago, most of you probably know, that I crafted the strongest physical bow in the game's history. It's called Loathe Thunder. Upon completion, within a couple of days, TFT listed a, I'd say comparable in quotes there, but in reality, almost identical bow, except for the fact it had tier 2 synth implicits. Very marginal difference, nonetheless slightly worse. This included a 1 in 9,100 divine. That's how many divines it takes on average to roll perfect prefixes, not including accuracy on the hybrid. It also had tier 1 attack speed, and it eventually even was eternal. Eternals costing 4 mirrors apiece, sometimes even 5 mirrors apiece, to get the Ashling double damage. It would be safe to refer to this as the second best bow, and depending who you talk to, quite possibly the second best item, period, in all of Path of Exile. The person who crafted this item, and the person who, by TFT's own volition, owns this item, has been banned for cheating. TFT acknowledges his ownership of said item. The item was not removed with his account. The item is openly listed on the trade site in the possession of Janubu. It's openly listed on TFT's website, and it's openly listed on TFT's Discord. It is not the only item, and at the very least, they are bypassing terms of service by proxy, and I think that the implications are even greater. But nonetheless, the outcome is the same, and that is that everyone is suffering as a result. So now, again, let's get to the hard evidence. Every single photo I'm about to show you has come from one of 3 places: TFT's Discord, TFT's website, forbiddentrove.com, or from public listings on the trade site. None of these photos have been doctored or altered in any way, and this video was recorded live on Twitch, so there were 100 people or so that can testify to the validity of these. It is quite possible that, when this comes out, these might be edited or whatever to kind of cover the tracks, but at the time of recording, I can assure you that these are all completely valid. So, in the first one here, we got TFT's Discord. And you can see here, Apocalypse Rain has been eternaled and finished with double damage. Enchanted, too. Owned by Janedu. One of the things you'll notice, too, the language about, I was discussing the difference between the TFT crafters and the people who use the mirror shop. Often when you see the items that they discuss, first of all, they'll be spoken of in a, they'll have some kind of editorial to them, right? It won't just be like, new items listed, blah, 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 fee. It'll have like the update on the item, what we're going for. It'll use the collective. Oh, we have eternaled it. We have blah, blah, blah. We made these decisions. It's very obvious that this is a collective thing. On top of that, as I pointed out, the amount of resources that it would take to accomplish this are really not, an individual person is not really going to be able to do this feasibly. You're talking about dozens and dozens and dozens of mirrors. And, again, this is not something I can send you a screenshot or a recording of, but for anyone whose eyes are somewhat open, it's very obvious that this is a project that is being funneled from the top down and something that has been worked on by TFT as a collective. Now, so we've got the item name, Apocalypse Rain. In the second photo here, let me move myself over so you guys can see. This is a listing on their actual site, forbiddentrove.com. As I mentioned, this just looks like how it would in anywhere else, showing the mods. You can see here it's got that tier 2 physical percentage, the one distinguishing factor between it and Low Thunder. As well, Low Thunder has a 14% chance to deal double damage. Marginal difference, but a couple percent better nonetheless. And on the bottom here, we can see the fee, as well as the owner. The word owner is explicitly used. And the name, Janadu. Now, the next slide here, we're going to see the same bow, Apocalypse Rain. And we're going to see it's in the possession of Janubu. One mirror fee. Mirror item, that's how people typically list them. We can see that this is not a mirror copy, it's the original item. And this screenshot was taken today after the next slide has happened. The ban, permanently, of the account of Janadu. Well, what does this mean? It means, by TFT's own admission, that the person who crafted and owns their very best item, their most lucrative item, and an item that they dumped tons of resources into, has been deemed unfit to continue participating in the community due to actions that are contrary to the best interest of the collective. In other words, they cheated. They were banned. So that begs the question. If they own this item and their account was banned, why is it that that item is still available? And why is it that that item has been passed along to the complicit party who is now, ad infinitum, allowed to reap the benefit of their ill-gotten gains? If that's not bad enough, I now want to show you a couple other things to prove this is not an isolated incident. B, 480 divines. Owner, Janadu. Item, two-handed sword. Best in slot. Crucible tree. Fee, 300 divines. Owner / crafter, Janadu. Influenced spine bow. Both of these listed on forbiddentrove.com and on the trade site. Next page. Horror knock. Best in slot spine bow. Deck stack. Crucible tree. B. Owner. Janadu. Grimmark synthesized thicket bow. Perfect thicket for deck stacking. 6T1. Perfect crucible tree. B. 300 divines. Owner. Janadu. Again, both of these items, as the previous two, listed on TFT's website, still with their original owner and crafter's name, who again was banned, and no consideration on their part that these items are, and by all measures should be, removed with the account that owns them and created them. No mention of it anywhere by anyone. Let's continue. The best quiver potentially in the game at the moment. Crit multi, +1 arrow. It's T2 crit multi. Guess TFT stands for tier fucking 2. Crit chance, tier 1. We've got the legacy crit multi. We have an undivined life roll. T1 though. Fizz damage to attacks, +1 arrow. Damage with bow skills, crafted attack speed. Fee, 280 divines. Owner, crafter, Janadu. That's a surprise. Next one. Little T1 crit multi vulnerability life ring. Little 6T1. Not divined again. Seems to be a theme. Nonetheless, I digress. Let's take a guess who's this one's by. Fee, 300 divines. Owner, Janadu. Huh. Oh, And we continue. 7% Dex. Oops. Grace. Intimidate. 61. Fee. 300 Divines. Owner. Janadu. I would find it understandable if so, but in case you've lost count, guys, that is 9 mirror items. Several bows, including the best bow, that are still being openly held, listed, and profited off of to the tune of thousands and thousands of divines weekly by TFT. Rather brazenly, I might add. I believe the evidence speaks for itself. But in case you need a reminder of, hey, how does this impact me, man? Belton, respect the passion. Don't play the game the same way. I just want a map. TFT makes certain things easier. I get that. I'm not trying to tell anyone how to live their life. And if you have fun, play the game as you will. I think consent is only consent when it's informed, however. And I think it's also important to consider that by virtue of the expansive reach this organization has, they've become somewhat the arbiters of appropriate action. These same people are the ones that can blacklist you or permaban you or can send out news alerts to hundreds of thousands of people. The same ones that for the last year have banned anyone that talks to me in my guild, that trades with me too actively. The same one that bans people who donate to me on stream or subscribe to me. This is not the invisible hand of the free market. This is the heavy hand of the ulteriorly motivated, opaquely run group of individuals that, despite the fact that they have some infrastructure in place that can afford you, a moment of respite from the friction that we get in trading, and I get that. I get that better than most people. Is it worth it? Maybe it is. But it's a discussion that needs to be had, and I think that this is rather egregious, either oversight on the part of TFT. Sorry, on the part of GGG, and frankly, a pretty brazen move on the part of TFT. I do suspect that they will backpedal and update these things to kind of scrub the association there, but I think no matter where you stand in this, and I understand that many people perhaps don't vibe with me or like me as a person, or find me to be too brash or whatever it is, and I can live with that. That's cool. I'm not trying to make this about myself. I'm no victim, and in fact, I haven't had TFT for quite a long time, and I'm a lucky one, right? I have a guild, I have a stream, and I've played the game since March of 2013. I've got a network of people in the game that, if I need to reach out and I need help with something, I know where to go. But most people don't have that. And, if you find yourself in a position where this group of people arbitrarily at times decides that, you're no longer on the up and up, you're no longer in the in group or the in crowd, think about how that could impact your game, and perhaps something like myself that is a great joy in my life, and really that sort of transcends simply a video game in a lot of ways. And I really am passionate and do care about it. And I think that accountability is in order, and that we should demand better. And at the very least, I think that there needs to be universal application, of law, right? Like, what's the purpose of banning an account if you allow all of the assets of that account to be transferred off to their cohorts and their complicit parties, to the point that they can now use them as revenue generating assets in perpetuity, right? These are not items that have like a one time. It's not like an alt art where they might get 10 mirrors. It's like, I crafted Load Thunder 5 months ago, and it has generated 440 mirrors in mirror services in 5 months. 440 mirrors in 5 months. Now, as I pointed out, their bow is slightly worse, but TFT's reach is far greater than mine. I'm not online 24/7, and they undercut the fee on mine. Obviously, just it wouldn't make sense for it to be higher when it's worse. But so it might not be quite as much, but it would be in that ballpark. And you might be asking, well, Belton, the title of the stream, or the title of the video rather, said, how this impacts you. And I want to keep this somewhat concise, so I will just say that, there's that old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And so I'm going to leave you guys with this picture. Janubu, 3,623 Hinakora's locks. When I was making this PowerPoint, I was doing so live on Twitch. One of the viewers was kind enough to go and check out the market information and relay that back to me. As a little fun fact for you guys, this represents 97.7% of all Hinakora's locks that are listed on the trade in the game. Why does this matter to you? Well, I think that new leagues, new crafting currencies, and new mechanics belong to everybody. And I think that, unfettered capitalism is always going to lead to a centralization of wealth to some degree. And I'm not opposed to that necessarily, in particular in a game. But what I am opposed to is when those gains are ill-gotten, and when a group that is already given and sort of infrastructurally has every advantage possible, further spits on the people below them, bypassing the rules that are presumptive for every other person in the game. And then on top of that has the audacity to sit there and act as if they are the arbiters of good faith and of proper action, to the point that they feel the right to dictate whether or not you're a scammer or a price fixer, despite the fact that their leader price fixes and tries to manipulate markets to deter competition on mirror crafts constantly. To cite and show video of about a dozen situations. But I'm not even trying to disparage them at this point, and I don't want to make this a battle of personalities. The last time that this went, last time I made a video in this vein, a lot of ad hominem attacks came. A lot of it became a battle of personalities. Please, I would love it if people can focus on what I'm trying to say here, the message of what the point is. Remove me from it if it helps. I'm not trying to even shit on Janubu here. TFT is an organization of individuals that, very well might have had good intentions at the start, and independently, each one of the people that are involved might be, pretty stand-up dudes. But I believe the behavior that's being displayed here really speaks for itself, and I think it kind of crosses a line into sort of egregious territory of, like, this is unacceptable. And that's the conclusion I've come to. You could probably tell that this is something I'm, it might sound like I'm being heavy-handed or whatever here, but I care about crafting a lot. I care about this game a lot, and I've spent literally thousands and thousands, if not tens of thousands of hours, focused on a very specific part of this game, trying to help people and teach people that. And when people fight back and say, "Oh, I can't do that because it's not accessible to me, it's too expensive, it's only for like the rich fucking elitist, blah blah blah," and I try to relay home, hey, there are some principles, this is how you can succeed, blah blah blah, set your goals, blah blah blah, focus, here's some tips. And then I see stuff like this where it's like, what, the hand's really stacked against them in some ways. And to myself, but a much lesser extent, because I have other, I have my tentacles elsewhere where I can kind of navigate those waters. But I know that this presentation probably has colored your opinion somewhat. I think it's pretty clear where I stand, but at the very least, I think we should develop a dialogue here. Please let me know what you guys think about this below in the comments. Whether or not you agree with me is fine. I open and welcome criticism, feedback. If you think I'm, cherry picking, whatever, speak your mind. This is never really going to resolve itself. Things are never going to improve in that vein if people are too afraid to discuss them. So thank you for watching, guys. I know that this is still just under 30 minutes, but that's pretty good for me. Thanksgiving tomorrow for my American friends. Us Canucks celebrated that a little while ago, but I hope for our my Yankee viewers, you guys have a great Thanksgiving, a wonderful weekend, and a happy time in raid class. So God bless Exiles, and I'll see you next time. Peace.